Thanks and good afternoon, everyone. I want you to take a minute and conjure up in your mind an image of World War II. Just try to get an image in your mind from World War II. I'll make a couple of suggestions. You might try picturing a burning U.S. warship at Pearl Harbor. Or if you would rather do a happier image, how about a man kissing a woman, leaning over and kissing a woman in Times Square in New York at the Victory, on Victory Day. Or maybe you prefer politics. Picture, how about Churchill, Stalin, and Roosevelt at Yalta, sitting down together. Maybe that image. Or maybe you'd rather think of something from the America of that era, roughly, maybe a little bit earlier, the Great Depression. Try to get an image in your mind of the Great Depression. If you're having trouble, think of a tired, worried-looking young mother staring off into the distance with a ragamuffin child leaning on each shoulder. Can you find that famous, iconic image in your mind? The iconic photograph by Dorothea Lange that we have come to call Migrant Mother, that has come to symbolize the Great Depression. It's very likely, as I've done this just with you just now, that the images that you've conjured up in your mind have been in black and white. Very, very likely. So now I'd like you to do the same exercise, but think about the imprisonment of Japanese Americans during World War II. Try to find in your mind an image that represents the imprisonment of Japanese Americans during the war. So what are you picturing? Does it look like this? A bunch of young Japanese American girls in kimonos dancing? This is a photograph taken by a government photographer at the Granada Relocation Center, also known as Amachi, in eastern Colorado in August of 1943. So if this isn't what you had in mind, what's different about it? Well, it's a photo, as I said, of young American citizens dancing, celebrating the spirits of their ancestors in a summertime Buddhist ritual called Bon Odori. Does it surprise you that Japanese Americans would have engaged in such open displays of Japanese culture while detained in what was basically a prison camp? Well, but maybe it wasn't so open because, after all, it was at night, right? I mean, this was happening at night. So there's a surreptitious quality to this. Well, this is a photograph of Bon Odori here at Heart Mountain. And it was taken either in July of 1943 or July of 1944. We can't be sure which, one or the other. It's daytime. Nothing suspicious about it, nothing surreptitious about it. In the barracks in the background, you can see that it's taking place in an open public space within the residential area of the camp itself. So just check this image out. Whoops, there we go. So there's something else that's special about this image. It's in color. It's actually in color. Brilliant, beautiful color. Take this photograph in for a moment. It's another shot of the same event at Heart Mountain, and it was taken not by a government photographer, but by one of the internees in camp. So just check that out, and then look at that, with the color restored. What I've done is I've taken color photographs and I've removed the color so that you can see them the way we're accustomed to seeing this era, and then you can see it the way it was shot by the photographer. So I wanted to just take a moment and ask you what the impact is, and I'd love to hear a couple of comments from you. What is the impact of seeing this historical moment in color rather than in black and white? Could a couple of you maybe put into words what the difference might be of seeing it in color as opposed to black and white? Yes?
I don't know if I can put it into words, Eric, but I know when I saw the color come up, I smiled. It felt warm to me.
Warm.
Yeah.
Any other reactions to color rather than black and white? Yes, sir.
I think in color it makes it seem a little more present time. I think the black and white, you have that sense, oh, that happened long ago. It doesn't have quite the effect.
So the suggestion is that there's something about black and white, at least when you're looking at historical photographs, there's something about seeing black and white that marks it as history. Whereas the color, you said, makes it feel a little more current. Any other suggestions? Yes, ma'am.
It gives you a feeling of happiness and that everything is fine.
Very interesting. It gives you a feeling of happiness and that everything is fine.
But when you see it in black, it looks
bleak.
Black and white. It looks bleak. And
Bleak.
It looks
More somber.
kind of dangerous.
Dangerous, somber.
Yes.
Well, stark versus real.
Yes.
Stark versus real. Stark versus real. Yes, sir.
Spontaneous versus staged. Definitely the black and white propaganda image is replaced by something that seems authentic and just at that moment.
These are all wonderful suggestions. Let's hold on to all of these because I think it's an important theme of this project, this book called Colors of Confinement, of which this is a presentation, is to think about not just the episode that we're treating, the incarceration of Japanese Americans during World War II, but also the way we interact with it, the way we see it, and the way these representations communicate meaning to us. So let me say a few things about, I want to volunteer a few of my own observations about what's striking about this photograph. One of them is just the beauty of the subjects. The beauty of the subjects. And I'm not just talking about their kimonos, which are gorgeous. I'm talking about their energy. There is a beautiful energy to these young women. Their delight and their humor. The lighting is not perfect, but the woman in the red kimono with the flowers, the white flowers, is turned to her left in a look of what can only be described as gleeful amusement. Obviously, something very funny has just been said when this photograph was snapped in this group of young women. So let's spend a moment on that. Delight, humor. There's a playfulness in the interactions in this group. This is unusual. What we're accustomed to seeing is images of dreariness, images of bleakness, depictions that on their surface communicate injustice. Think, if you are familiar with it, of Toyo Miyatake's very famous photograph of 3 boys at Manzanar standing and looking wistfully across a barbed wire fence, a black and white image. That's the classic image of Japanese American incarceration. This is something quite different. Notice the contrast between the beauty of the subjects and the bleakness of the backdrop. The dry, parched ground that they're standing on, the dreary tar paper barracks that they lived in, the chimney of the communal mess hall where they ate their meals. Notice, again, something that I suggested in the earlier photograph, the black and white one, the openness of Japanese culture. This is something we're very unaccustomed to in the imagery of this era. But, and this is hard to see in this light, don't miss, look at the young lady in the purple facing just to the left of the woman who's laughing, smiling. She's wearing saddle shoes. If you look down at the bottom, she's got on saddle shoes. And so this is not a depiction only of Japanese culture. There is something culturally complicated going on here. Given the ages of these subjects, we can be certain that if we could listen in on their conversation, they would be speaking unaccented American English. So there's something culturally complicated that's being documented here. I love this photograph. This one shows that cultural blend that I'm talking about in a really beautiful and very humorous way. Same event, it's the Bon Odori summertime Buddhist ritual of celebration of ancestors, and we've got a young woman dancing, and over her right shoulder, a man with a headband is dancing, and then over her left shoulder is someone